welcome back to another exciting episode of CUNY Uncut, where we talk about anything and everything, uncensored, unedited, and uncut. I'm your host, Isabel Ortiz, and today I am thrilled to be joined by a very exciting guest. She is a two-time CUNY grad, getting her undergraduate degree from Hunter College and her master's in social work from Lehman. But during her master's degree, she was not only focused on getting good grades, but also navigating her first pregnancy. She has since gone on to have 3 children and is now a content creator in the world of maternal wellness and lifestyle. With that being said, I would love to give a very warm welcome to Rosdaly Ramirez. Hi, Rosdaly. How are you doing today?
Hi. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited that you're excited to be here. I'm super excited to have you on the show today because I know CUNY is very well known for its diversity, but something I appreciate about your journey specifically is it really highlights how CUNY really helps students at different eras of their life. So for you were a mom when CUNY really came into play.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you were pregnant with your first son, like I mentioned, you were studying for your master's degree. How did being pregnant and having your first son really change the navigation that maybe you were on or the journey you were on towards your master's?
Yeah. So I started this journey before I found out I was pregnant, even before I was planning kids. And so obviously when I got pregnant, I think I had a lot of fears of, can I actually take this on?
Yeah.
And I think, I think society in itself has this idea, when you become a parent, your world stops, right?
Yeah.
And although there's some truth to that, there's also the reality that there are resources to support parents to be able to, right, achieve things that they want to achieve.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's not going to take them it's going to take them much longer, right?
Yeah.
But there is support. And so when I started my journey, I got accepted into the Lehman program for social work, and I was really excited. I had been working at a high school, and I was a counselor there, and I was kind of shadowing the social workers, and it just kind of clicked. I'm like, yeah, I want to do social work, not just with high school students, but I think in general, being able to support people in the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm from the Bronx. And so there's a lot of resources that we lack, but at the same time, there's resources that are here,
Mm-hmm.
especially in New York City, but no one knows about them.
Yeah, they're not well enough publicized or marketed to people who really do need them.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I learned, right? If you don't ask, you don't know. If you don't research, you won't find out, right? And so as I was navigating getting into the program, I said, well, I can't, start full-time. And so usually full-time in master's, you have to take 3 classes, depending on what program you're in. And I was in a 3-year program. And so I went and I said, you know what, I can only do 1 class. They accepted that I was pregnant, that there was a chance that perhaps I would be a lot for me to juggle.
Yeah.
And the school was very accommodating to having me part of the program, even if I was part-time.
That's nice.
And so long story short, I'm in school, I'm excited, I'm going to class, and I ended up having my baby premature.
Oh, wow.
And so that was kind of a bump in the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember sharing with you, listen, I had my baby on a Saturday and he was premature. He was in the NICU. And literally on a Tuesday, I was back in class and I was there sitting oh, I'm here.
Did you feel too, at that time, time had really stopped because of, your son was in the NICU and you didn't really know how to go back or, what is new normalcy now?
Yeah, I think thinking back, right, I don't think I knew. I think the world stopped, but I felt like I needed to keep going, right?
Keep yourself busy.
Yeah, keep myself busy. And I think for a lot of moms that experience birth trauma or even, experience grief in that way of becoming a new mom, they'll find themselves trying to fill up these spaces of well, I can't just sit around, right?
Yeah.
I got to keep doing what I got to do. And so that was very much my mindset. And I remember the professor, she saw me sitting down and she's like, I just read your email. Like, your email said you gave birth. That was Saturday. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'm like, my baby's in the NICU. Like, I don't really know what to do. I guess I just have to be here. And she was so, like, encouraging. I was, like, crying my eyes out in front of the class. And it was one of those moments where I'm like, this is just where I am, you know?
Yeah.
And so along the way, you know, I had more hiccups. My son got sick when he was 2 months old. He had to get surgery. And I remember the date that he had the surgery, I had a huge project for the class.
Okay.
And I wasn't there to present. And so the professor was very much like, hey, like, I want to have a heart-to-heart to you. I don't want to discourage you.
Yeah.
But I want you to know that it seems like in this season, you need to be a mom.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not what you want to hear, because I know you have goals, right? Like, clearly, right? Like, you're here. But I want to tell you, if you decide that this might be a lot in this season, like, I think you should do it. I think you need to step down.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. Yeah. And I think, man, in that moment, I felt a lot of pressure, because I think I was hearing the voices of, you became a mom and now it's like, you can't do it anymore. Like, your life has ended. Like, no more seeking out goals, like achieving your dreams. Like, it ends.
And I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I know growing up, I always heard, like, if you were to get pregnant,
Oh, yeah.
your life as you know it is over. And like, it's really, now it's on, everything in you is for your children, but there's also a piece of you left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And I think a lot of moms lose that, right? Like, they lose that because I think society in itself, and I think culturally, I mean, I'm a Latina, so very much like getting pregnant is like, that's it, it's over for you.
Yeah.
Like, there's no more. And so I think those voices tend to impact the way you make decisions. And a lot of the times, right, like, your decisions, although they're well, but I think they could be detrimental to you, because now you have all this pressure that if you fail, right, then everyone would be right? You couldn't do it.
And you don't want to prove the naysayers,
and you don't want to prove
right?
it. You don't want to prove someone. And so I remember that, and I remember, like, crying, and I was telling my husband, and mind you, my husband, he's always been really supportive. I mean, the only reason I finished the program was because of him. Right? Like, there would be no way for me to, like, attend late classes, like, attend doing my studies, like, doing internship without having him support me. And so I remember him saying, he's like, listen, I told you, right? Like, there might be a chance that this might be a lot for you.
Yeah.
And so figure out, maybe you do need to pause, right? Like, maybe another chance. Yeah. And I was like being so stubborn. I'm like, no, like, I need to do it. Like, it's not like happening. And he's like, I think you're trying to take more than what you can take on.
How did it feel to have, like, your husband be real with you and be like, maybe this is not for you right now.
Yeah.
But it's not forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it felt encouraging, although it was hard.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think people and being honest, right, it was for my well-being. Like, hey, like, we're seeing the outside of you. The outside of you looks like this might be a lot.
Yeah.
We're not telling you you can't do it and then you won't be able to achieve it. What we're saying is that right now it just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think the school played a huge role in kind of like rooting for me. And I love that, right? Like, I felt like that gave me the peace to kind of step down. Yeah. It wasn't so much of like, well, girl, like, you know, there's other people that need the seat.
It wasn't like tough luck.
Like,
you know?
Yeah, like, sorry. Like, it was more like, what can we do to support you and how can we advocate for you, right? Like, and that's exactly what the school did. The professor ended up writing a letter to, like, the social work, like, director, and just kind of vouching, like, hey, like, would it be, you know, is there a chance for her to come back? And one, she wouldn't have to reapply.
Yeah.
Or go through the process. She would just have a seat next year. And that's exactly what happened. They ended up applying that I didn't have to reapply or do any of the process. I was going to have a seat the next fall.
And it takes, like, that stress off.
Yeah, because I'm, like, applying and then interviewing. And then you gotta pay, like, you gotta pay the tuition. Like,
yeah.
In grad school, I'm like, this is not undergrad. When I was, like, in the SEEK program and I was getting financial aid, like, I didn't have to pay anything out of pocket. In grad school, I was paying out of pocket. I had to pay for that class. Yeah. And so there was all those things. On top of that, the school gave me back my money, right?
Which is, like a blessing.
Literally. I'm like, the school gave me back my money. They allow me to re-enter right into the program the year after. And I think of that and I'm like, yeah, it gave me so much freedom to say, like, one, I definitely want to continue going here. Yeah. Right? Because I see that this school cares about me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yeah, this is a program where, like, it's also social work. And so when we think about ethical values, right, like, yeah, the program stands by what it is.
Yeah, and you see it
and I saw it, right?
Into play, yeah.
Like, I'm like, yeah, it's a program that sees you, that just supports you. Yeah. And so I came the year after, and now I was a mom of a 1-year-old. And I was trying to navigate motherhood while also being a full-time worker, right? Like working at a school from 7 to 4, then running to Lehman to, like, get to all of my classes. And by this time, I wasn't just taking one class. I was actually taking all 3 of them.
Wow. So, like, you went back, like, full storm, basically. Yeah. So, I know you mentioned, like, CUNY gave you the resources, like, with the professors being an advocate for you, like, on top of you trying to be an advocate for yourself. But when it came that, okay, your son's here and you were actually, like you said, going back to school full storm, what other resources were there now actually for your son?
Yeah, so after I was in the program for a year, I needed childcare. Yeah. And at the time, I didn't know that Lehman had an early childhood center. It was actually a friend that mentioned it to me because she was doing, like, speech and early intervention. And I'm like, oh, I mean, I've passed by the building, but again, I don't know. It could be for those that work there, you know? Yeah. And so I went to check, and they were like, yeah, you know, this is actually for the students, right? Like, the kids get to be here during the day or during at night. They offer, like, camp. They have, like, access to the playgrounds. And that was the other thing. They also had their own playgrounds.
I'm sure there's, like, a safety element that comes into it, too.
I'm like, listen, in a family daycare, it could be a hit or miss. Right? But when it comes to a program that's within the college, you know that there's certain regulations that they've had to go through. Yeah. And so there's a safety feeling there, especially when it's your first baby. Yeah. And no one talks to you about transitioning your baby to childcare, or what it even means to be a working parent and have your kid in childcare. I think a lot of people have a lot of opinions about being the working mom or whatever, but I'm like, yeah, it's hard without a resource. And so I ended up putting him in the program. He got accepted. He actually went the first day that he turned 2. Oh. So he went on his birthday. That was his first entrance.
Oh my God. He come with cupcakes. He already has a ton of friends.
He did. He had, like, this little Spider-Man sweater, and he was, like, so cute. And the other thing, too, they had an app. And so in the app, they would take pictures of what's happening. They would give you updates. But the best part about this was the funding, right? The school in itself was getting funding from, like funding from outsource. Okay. And so, I mean, we didn't really have to pay that much, right? And so we would pay for the semester, and he was there for literally from the beginning of September all the way to June, and then in the summer. And then I remember the first time I paid, like, that year in full, the director there was like, hey, you know, we actually got extra money from, like, funding. So I'm just going to give you your money back. And I'm like, what?
Oh, my God, my jaw would have dropped to the ground.
Like, oh. She's like, yeah. She's like, sometimes, you know, we get funding, and that's how we keep these programs going. Oh, wow. And it was such a safe place. Like, all the teachers that were there were also students or, like, graduates. They had classrooms, they had nap time, they had snacks, like, and so the school was a huge resource for me, right? Like, that's how I remained in the graduate program for 3 years. Yeah. Yeah.
And I know you mentioned, too, like, professors were a resource for you. your husband was a resource for you, and then this daycare was also a resource for you. And I think that's great because I know a common phrase you hear all the time, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
And some people don't get that luxury of having like that family kind of village.
Mm-hmm.
So being that you got these resources, did that actually like become your village? And what advice could you give people who are like struggling to find that village if they don't have it, or like that community?
No, yeah, that was my village, right? Because they were the ones that were seeing my son consistently, right? They were checking in. And even the professors, right? Like the professors took their time to know, like, how am I doing, right? Like, what's been going on? How are you keeping track of, like, working and then also having to do your internship and also coming here to class because I'm sure you're tired, right?
Were you getting like an hour of sleep? What was going on?
My gosh, it was, listen, it was a blur.
Okay.
And I think the biggest, right, like, idea, like we saw it play it out, like I saw it play out as a village when the pandemic hit.
Okay.
So my son was in the program, and then a few months after, shutdown happened, right? Yeah.
Oh my God, it's just like one thing after another.
Yeah, so the shutdown happened, and we were all sent home, and so we had to start school virtually, right?
Okay.
And even in that, right, like the program did a really good job in just saying, like, hey, we're going to try our best. Once CUNY, like, kind of lifts their, hey, like, we're actually going to allow, like, people to come into the college, then we're also going to allow the kids to come back. And, you know, in that time, I was in school. I was also a full-time student, so I was working from home. And I ended up finding out that I was pregnant again.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's my second baby. And the school, man, like the school just did a really good job in making all the parents feel really safe enough to say, hey, we know that you're working. We know it's scary, but we want to serve you in that way to just open up the school because we know a lot of parents cannot work remotely.
Yeah.
I think the first few months, right, leading up to the opening of the school, I was working 8 hours. I was exhausted. My husband was also working from home. So there wasn't a lot that we can give our son, but an iPad, snacks, and hey, bud, like right now I have to be in this meeting.
Yeah.
So you can sit with me next to the Zoom meeting, but just know this is where I am. And as you know, right, as a parent, that was a very impactful time for so many of us, right? I think a lot of people are still experiencing the aftermath of it.
Yeah, the effects.
And if you don't have a village, like, I think about what if the school would have been like, actually, we're not going to open up the program.
Yeah, or like, because
right?
Realistically, that could have been the end of the
Yeah,
program, you know?
Like, it could have been the end, but I think the school was working really hard.
Yeah.
And kind of just making it be something that it was like, yeah, like we need to step in for families because we know a lot of family members are not helping, right?
Yeah.
Like I gave birth to my baby. I had no family member. My husband didn't stay in the hospital because he had to stay with my oldest. So I was in the hospital by myself after I gave birth, and we had no village.
Yeah.
And so my village was literally the CUNY school. That was supporting me in meeting the needs of my oldest.
And I know too that you have gone onto social media to share your story, and now that you do have 3 boys, you really shed light on the reality of what it means to be a mom. Because I know, like, even I'm always on TikTok. I don't know about you. There's this kind of trend going on of the trad wife.
The trad wife, yeah.
And, like, this perfect image of being a mom. Like, I saw this lady making her some bread just to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's insane. But I appreciate about your content, you shed light on the realities of being a mom, like whether it be messy or not perfect, it may be. So what really pushed you to show that side of parenting? Because I know, like, that can be something scary to share, especially online.
Yeah, I think you see you see multiple parents, right, on social media. But I think the moms it's either the stay-at-home mom or the working mom.
And there's always, like, this battle.
There's always this battle.
Yeah.
I'm like, guys, like, you're all mothers. Like, just support each other. But I think with the trend of the trad wife, it kind of gives you this picture of like the traditional wife, the traditional homemaker. And I think most stay-at-home moms are that, right?
Yeah.
But it's unrealistic to believe that a stay-at-home mom can only serve their home, can only serve their children, right? Like there's so many other mental struggles that they're battling with.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is, right, the loss of themselves, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like if I'm stepping into my home, I don't think I have extra hands for anybody else.
Yeah.
And then there's a working mom that she's working, and then everyone is kind of like, but who takes care of your kid?
Yeah.
Like, why are you here? Like,
Everybody
is
always
money
has
or
some questions.
I'm like, come on, guys. And so I think I started sharing from a lens of when I was struggling with my mental health, right? Like having my firstborn as a NICU and as a NICU baby and transitioning into motherhood in the way that I did.
Yeah.
I think it impacted a lot of my ideas of motherhood on top of the ideas that I had of motherhood from my childhood.
Yeah.
Right. And this fear of like, I don't even know if I want to be a mom. Like,
Yeah.
being a mom is rough. And like, people are not really nice to moms. Like, there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of opinions. And there's so much pressure that it's like, do I have to be a perfect mom?
Is there any such thing
is
as a
there
perfect
such
mom?
thing? And there isn't, right? And I think in a world right now that I don't think it's bad that we're trying to be cycle breakers, right? Like we do want to be the generation that breaks cycles, but we don't want to break cycles believing that we're not going to cause any hurt or any pain on the next generation.
I mean,
It's not real.
with life comes bumps.
Yeah.
Your children are feel those bumps just like you feel those bumps. I know I felt those bumps just like my mom felt those bumps. And you're always just, in any way possible, you're trying to do better than the generation before you, but like being realistic in terms of like what your life looks like. And I know you touched on it a little bit, but this idea that when you become a mom, your kind of mental health like kind of falls to the backside. But I think in order, correct me if I'm wrong, in order to be the best version of you, you do have to focus on those things for yourself, like your mental health, your personal growth. So for you, like, what advice can you give to moms who may be dealing with their, like, working on their mental health? Especially, because I don't want anybody to feel like they have to feel guilty in prioritizing themselves sometimes.
Yeah, I recently started like a series on my Instagram about low-key ways that mothers can have self-care. And I actually got this, I was inspired by another psychologist that I found on social media. And his thing was very much like, there are other ways that you can take care of your mental health outside of this glamorous self-care version that IG gives you, right? IG tells you like, book the next flight, go to the spa date, get your nails done every week, go get your hair done.
Very surface level things.
And I'm like, I'm a mom. Like, can you like come with me so like you can take care of my kids so I can go do my nails, right? Who's booking my flight? Because that costs money, right?
Who's funding the flight?
Who's funding it? And I realized that moms need more realistic ways to take care of their mental health, right?
Yeah.
So that in postpartum, right, like which is the period after you give birth, take a bath, right? Like don't forget to take a shower, and a lot of moms do, right?
Yeah.
Because it's such a vulnerable time. Don't forget to eat, right? Like if you need to meal prep so that you have breakfast and lunch every single day, that's self-care, right? Self-care is, hey, you actually don't like the way your home looks, reorganize it, right? Like find comfort in reorganizing your home the way that you want it to look.
Whatever works for you, because you are stuck at, like, you get caught in this whirlwind. I'm sure.
And then the other realistic reality is that a lot of moms have to do self-care with their kids.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't have time to go to the gym, or I don't have someone to stay with my kid while I go to the gym.
Yeah.
So how do I meet my goals, right? To be healthy. I guess I got to work out. I'll get a mat for this kid, and then I'll just work out in this room with my kid, right?
Yeah.
And so I think a lot more moms need to know that there are other ways for them to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, right, like, I remember my social work professor would say this all the time. I'm not targeting to support children. I am targeting to support the parent. When I address and take care of the parents, the head of the household, which is either a dad or a mom or mom, like whoever it is, I need to know that they're taken care of first. Those are the people that I want to counsel.
Yeah.
The children, there is enough resources for children. That's the honest truth.
And also, I would assume it's kind of like a domino effect. If you make sure the mom's good, the parent's good, the children will most likely be good too. It's like you have to put your oxygen mask on first.
Exactly.
You know?
And we hear that a lot, but I think when you are a parent, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Because your first instinct is to, I got to take care of them first. And it's like, well, you do. But then what happens to you?
Like you mentioned before, it's a grieving process. You're grieving your old self. You're coming into your new self as a mom. And there's still aspects of yourself from before that will carry over that you also got to remember too, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that's the hardest part, right? Like, I think I recently shared a video of figuring out my style, right? Like you give birth to a baby and your body doesn't look the way that you thought it would.
Yeah.
And then you're like, none of my clothes fits. So what do I do, right? And so you start to find something else, right? Like something else that you love. And so I think I've been in that season, right? But I really want to display it from a light of like this Bronx mom that is a Latina that doesn't have the financial stability that I think most people expect stay-at-home moms have.
Yeah.
I get this question a lot, like, how can you afford to be a stay-at-home mom? And I'm like, I cannot afford to be a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
But the truth is, like, a lot of stay-at-home moms sacrifice a lot of their income.
Yeah.
And those are not the stories that you get to hear.
Yeah.
And if they are, then people look down, like, oh, like, you receive SNAP benefits? Dang, like, that's a little rough, right?
The stigma is
There's
insane.
so much stigma. And I'm like, and again, those are all resources.
Yeah.
The idea of, like, receiving food stamps, being on Medicaid, having housing, having vouchers for childcare.
Yeah.
The fact that people look down, right, at these programs that are being funded for people.
Yeah.
And it's not to say, right, like, oh, well, the goal is that we're going to stay on this forever. The goal is that you would actually take advantage of these programs because they're there.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't feel scared.
Don't feel scared.
Yeah.
I'm like, what if I would have went into grad school, and the childcare program, I would have been like, oh, like, you know, like, maybe not. Like, maybe I should just go pay full time to another. Really? Like, you know? So I'm like, if I would have had a mindset of, like, this is not for me, this is for people that need it the most, then I would have lost out on a village, but I also would have lost out on a program that was supporting me financially by not having to break my pocket in childcare. My kid was safe, and I got to graduate with a master's, right? All
awesome.
while being a mom.
That's amazing that CUNY really gave you that resource to kind of fulfill your dreams and not feel like guilty about doing it with your children. But you have given so much great advice, especially I would assume for new moms who moms are like maybe want to go back to school. Being that this is CUNY Uncut, I like to ask everybody one last final question, and that is, what is your CUNY survival item? Mine, I say it every episode, is a coffee. I need it to get through the day. So for you, what is your CUNY survival item?
I would have to say a journal.
Journal, okay.
Yeah. I think that journaling there's a gift there, right? That you can write down your thoughts. And that's something that I learned in therapy, right? Like, when I was in grad school, I would write all over my notebook. I would write little notes like, oh, this class is a lot. I'm really tired. I would jot down like, oh, I have to get diapers for Calvin before I leave to class, right? And so there was something about the notebook that was like guiding me through like all of my thoughts.
Well, again, thank you so much for being on CUNY Uncut. This really has been great. And I wish you all the success in your content creation journey and your journey as a mom.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that is a wrap on today's episode of CUNY Uncut. Make sure to check us out on social media. And once again, I'm your host, Isabel Ortiz. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.